again for being here. Also, besides your contact information, it might be helpful because each counselor will collect the cards that are assigned to their student to follow up with. So if your student's name is different than your last name, that'll help us to put your student's name as well on there. So that way we can follow up with you if we don't answer your question here. Can I just get a quick show of hands though? How many parents here have a freshman student here at Cupertino? Okay. How many of you have a sophomore student? Okay, thank you. And how many a junior student? Okay, and how many of you are Cupertino alumni yourselves? Mr. Puccinelli is one of them. So Mr. Puccinelli, our assistant principal, he is a Cupertino graduate. And a parent. Okay, well let's talk about what we're going to cover today. So we're going to go over the course selection timeline as well as the graduation and college eligibility, which is also called the A through G list, and then their requirements. Then we're going to also talk about the course selection resources that are available to you and that we've shared with your students. And then last, we're going to talk about the information of how you and your student can look at the courses that are available to them and make their selection on Infinite Campus and on the Informed K-12 form. That's a two-part process that we'll go through later on in this presentation. So again, you may want to wait through the presentation to determine if we answered a question or if we go over a section and then we go to the next section and you're like, boy, I missed something there. Maybe there's a general question I might want to ask regarding that section that we just covered. That would be the spot for you to write on the card, and hopefully we can answer those questions. So again, be patient with that, but you have a pen or a pencil and the cards available to you. If you didn't get one, you can raise your hand. Mr. Puccinelli will give you a index card. There's some over down in front.
I make my way.
Okay. So this is our timeline. So yesterday and Monday, we went through the course selection presentation. Last week on Wednesday and Friday, we had a course information fair. And in that fair, students were able to go to classrooms and find out about the differences between, for example, U.S. History and U.S. History AP, or some of the math classes, or some of the elective classes. So each teacher held a presentation of the class, talked about the class in general, talked about how they test them, how they're graded, the rigors of the course, what the expectation is, and it was just a great time for students. Students were able to go to that on last Wednesday and last Friday. And then we also went over, just this week, when we met with your students to do the course registration or course selection, we went over their four-year plan. So they looked at their four-year plan and assessed, are they continuing or did they want to make changes to it? So a lot of them are looking ahead to the next year and even beyond in what they want to do after high school and their plans for that to determine the appropriate classes to choose. So what's going to happen next week and next month in February, that's when students will be able to start making their choices. So we hope that they're going to speak with you and maybe show you the choices they're going to make. We are going to have counselors in the quad next Monday and Wednesday during tutorial. So students will be able to come to us and show us their selections and maybe ask us questions. What do you think about my schedule? Ask individual questions with the counselors. So that'll be next week, counselors in the quad. And they will be selecting their classes that match their interests. So hopefully through the opportunities that they've had of talking to teachers, talking to counselors, and talking to other students who have taken these classes, they'll be able to make the best decision for themselves in terms of what class they want to take next year. And then after they've made their selection, you'll have to wait till April, we will send them an email and we'll show them all the classes that they selected. And at that point in time, they'll be able to look over that list. They'll have actually gone through one progress report, so they'll know what their grades are in their current classes in terms of looking ahead to next year, and they'll be able to decide, are these still the classes I want to take, or do I want to make any last minute changes, and that would be in April. And that will be during the course verification email that's sent out. They'll look at the list, you'll sign it, your student will sign it, and then they'll verify that these are the classes they want to take or that they want to make a change. It'll send back to us, and that will be their last opportunity to make any changes this year. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Emmert.
No, me.
No, not you.
Just kidding, Mrs. Ferris. Hi, everybody. Okay, so the slides that I'm going to cover with you, there's a lot of information, but I also want to remind you, I see a lot of cameras up. This slide is going to be available, or all of these slides are going to be available online. I'll show you how to get there on a couple slides ahead, okay? So don't feel like you need to take photos unless that's how you process information. But again, this is going to be available for all of you online. All right, so we went into the student classrooms earlier this semester, a couple of weeks ago actually, and we sat down with their students and we talked about their 4-year plan and also reminded them of the graduation and A to G requirements. Again, when we are referring to A to G requirements, that means we're talking about the 4-year college eligibility requirements for the CSUs and the UCs, okay? So there's a lot of overlap, but I'm gonna highlight some differences for you guys, okay? One thing that we tell the student is, in order to graduate, you need a total of 220 credits, right? You'll see that here. And also you need a minimum of a D grade, right? A D will get you credits for a diploma. Okay, and as you go down the subject requirement, you'll see here that students need 3 years of history or 30 credits. And just to remind you, so one class for a full year is equivalent to 10 credits, right? They get 5 credits first semester, and then they get 5 credits second semester. So when we say here that history, you need 30 credits, that's the equivalency to 3 years, okay? So history students are gonna need 30 credits. They start history in sophomore, junior, and then finish their senior year in history. Freshmen do not take history with us, okay? Then they're gonna need 4 years of English. So they gotta take English every single year here. They have options, we'll go over those later down the slides. For math, the requirement is 20 credits, okay? So that's the equivalency of 2 years. Minimum for FUHSD is you need to pass Algebra 1 and you need to pass geometry. Now we know that many of our students are coming in sometimes with algebra credit already because maybe they took it in middle school, maybe even geometry, so maybe they're starting as a freshman in Algebra 2, okay? And if that's the case for your child, right, they still need 2 years of math, okay? So 2 years, a minimum of Algebra 1 and geometry, or 20 credits, right, as they go higher up. For lab science, it's the same as math. They need 2 years of a lab science, okay? 20 credits, 1 year of biological science, 1 year of physical science. Okay, many of your freshmen right now, actually all of our freshmen, they are currently in biology. That is a freshman course. Next year they have more options to satisfy the other requirements, and again, we'll talk about that on a couple more slides. Now for world language, visual and performing arts, and applied academics, there are asterisks here because for graduation, we require that students complete 2 out of the 3 categories, okay? They do not have to satisfy all 3 of them. As long as they take 2 out of 3 categories, they will meet those requirements, okay? Moving down to PE, that is a state mandate, right, where we need students to have 20 credits of PE in order to graduate. So they need the equivalency of 2 years of PE in order to graduate. Now lastly, for general elective, you'll see here that students need 60 to 70 credits of general elective credits. A lot of students, when they see that number, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so high. How am I gonna get 60 to 70 credits? Well, first of all, anything above and beyond the minimum requirement, so maybe a student's taking a 3rd year of math, a 3rd year of science, maybe they're taking all 4 years of world language, right? So once they meet those minimum requirements, all of the excess will pop down under general elective. Okay, if your student also plays a sport, right, and they've met their PE requirements, those sports will go to general elective. If they are a teacher assistant, student tutor, we have other also electives on campus that we'll talk about, also meet those requirements, okay? But general rule of thumb, if they meet the requirements and go above and beyond, they'll get those credits, okay? So that is the equivalency of 220 credits, and again, those are the graduation requirements. We want all of our students to meet these requirements first, right? And then we also want them, if you're doing these requirements, it's very likely that you will already meet the A to G requirement. One of the big differences though is you need a minimum to be college eligible, a C grade, okay? So D's will get you credit for a high school diploma. C's are the minimum grades needed for college eligibility, okay? As you can see here, there is overlap. A couple of differences is history colleges. So again, the UCs and CSUs in the state of California, they're only gonna look at 2 years of history. They do want 4 years of English, so they'll have that with us. Math, a highlight here, they actually want 3 years of math, okay? So the minimum for them is Algebra 2. For science, it's the same as our graduation requirements, so they need 2 years. Now the difference here, so again for graduation, this is optional, you can do 2 out of 3, but on this end, they actually want students to do world language, okay? So they need to complete 2 years of the same language or up to level 2. Okay, so some of our students